What is up, YouTube? And today, on Thursday, as we make our run to regionals, we are going to take a close look at Vespiquen. Now, this is for expanded format, but this is Vespiquen, one of the decks I'm strongly considering taking. And obviously, we're going to be running 4 Vespiquen. Now, we might be changing this deck as we test play it, but this is the initial version I'm playing. We're going to be running 4 Combi. I couldn't actually find a 4th one of the Ancient Origins, so I did run this Combi, which can deal just to make my set of 4. It's pretty much worse in every way because it's got that 30 HP, which says, Hypnotoxic Laser, Verbank Gimmet. But, it could deal 30 damage, and going to the discard pile isn't necessarily a bad thing. But yeah, normally I'd be running 4 of this, but yeah, didn't have it. Sadly, sad stories. Alright, we're going to be running our Eon Pokemon, our Jolteon ×1, our Vaporeon, and our Flareon with their various effects, so that our Vespiquen can put a lot of pain on the right things. Electric and Fire are the 2 types we're going to need the most here in a lot of matchups. Then that and Vespiquen's already existing Grass type, obviously. I almost didn't run Vaporeon. The only reason I ran Vaporeon is because I was thinking, well, Landorus EX, Bats, that might be a thing, and maybe something else, but he was the only real reason, and I thought, as much as I don't think that's going to be a big deal, if I do run into that matchup, Vaporeon could be extremely important in winning it, because Lando and those Bats could do a lot of damage otherwise. So so I did include the Vaporeon for this iteration of the deck. And I did include one other Eon, and that's actually the Team Plasma Flareon. I can't level ball it, but it's essentially like a backup Vespiquen, and it's one that is the Fire type automatically, so it doesn't need something to turn it into a Fire type, so that might be kind of nice in the right situation. He might be bad news for Aegislash. I thought it was worth a try, and I don't have to search him with items, so if we get hit by Vileplume, especially, we can just use a Fire Energy on that Eevee and go ahead and get a pseudo Vespiquen to start setting up for. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea. I definitely wanted to have access to it. Speaking of which, we're obviously running the Energy Evolution Eevee ×4. I kind of wanted to try Leafeon, the Plasma Leafeon. I thought that could be really useful. Might be a great way to beat down Seismitoad and a couple other things. But I decided not to run it this time around, but we'll see. If my matchups show me that I need that, I'll run it. I'm running 4 of the Farewell Letter Unknown, just because obviously it stuffs my grave and it gets me cards and stuff like that. So, duh, mostly. We're also running 2 copies of Shaman EX for his setup value, and he's a great Ultra Ball target. And that's our Pokemon lineup, which is 22, which is way more than we normally run, but this is Vespiquen. Supporter Rise, we got 4 Junipers. And remember, because this is expanded, we can take advantage of N here, so no need for Birch or Ace Trainer. Not when we got this guy who does the job of each one better, essentially. So we're definitely running this, and hey, late in the game when we are down to our last few prizes, it's not a bad thing to end because it helps prevent us from decking out, essentially. So it allows us to be a little more aggressive in drawing through our deck than we normally could be, which is awesome. So N is definitely a huge boon for this deck and expanded. We're also opting for 1 teammates because almost everything in our deck is 1 prize, and we only have 2 things that are 2 prizes. And this can be incredible for getting our setup, making sure everything keeps going. This can get you a Vespiquen and a DCE, for example. It's just an amazing card for you. It's a great versus secret target in this deck. We're also running 1 Lysander because, well, at this point that should be self-explanatory. And we are running 1 Hexmaniac. This card's just a little too important not to run. Aegislash EX, I think, is the #1 thing we want to hit with this, but obviously on turn 1 you can play this after you've gotten your Shaman or Shamans played out, and it can impair your opponent's turn 1. So, I mean, there's no reason really not to use this in the early game. If you get it and you don't have another supporter or way to use this card, why not? But mid to late game, this can be very crucial in certain matchups, so crucial that you pretty much, I think, have to have it, and it can be nice for relief from Vileplume too, of course. We're running 3 Ultra Balls. These are mostly just to have the value of the discarding things from your hand for Shaman, and also for the benefit of setting up Vespiquen or Flareon. So yeah, and it's our only access to our Plasma Flareon as well, since it's over 90 HP. Speaking of 90 HP, we are running 3 Level Balls just to get almost everything in the deck, obviously. So that's just making sure our setup is extremely consistent. We've also got 4 battle compressors. I've opted for 4 just to, once again, up that consistency with our first build here, which honestly looks pretty robust. These are great for stuffing our discard pile full of Pokemon, but also for getting those one-of supporters in there so that our Versus Seekers become really useful for to us. And if all else fails, you can just get rid of things you don't want to draw. And in this deck, you go through your deck pretty quickly, so that's actually a pretty legitimate thing. We're running 4 Versus Seekers because obviously we're making a lot of utility out of our discard pile here. Lots of things we want to reuse. I've opted for 2 Muscle Bands just to give Vespiquen that little bit of oomph that can easily mean the difference between knockout or not knockout, especially when we're taking advantage of the weakness on our opponent's Mons with our Eon Pokemon. Instead of the usual Sacred Ash this build gets, I'm actually opting for Super Rod because we do have access to it in Expanded. And since we have a very low energy count, I feel like this card is extremely important, very valuable, as Sacred Ash doesn't get energies, but Super Rod does. So this can be a pretty important way, I think, to save us from situations that might otherwise be pretty ugly for us. But of course, it does also get us some Pokemon without necessarily stuffing our deck with a whole mess of Pokemon, because I find that when most people are playing it, and they go for 5 Mons with Sacred Ash, they either don't even have the 5 in the first place when they play it, or if they do, it's, you know, not all stuff they really needed to send back, and they're kind of sending back extra things because. So I feel like if we don't want to send back that much, well, let's not send back that much. We do have 1 switch. This is just kind of a get-out-of-jail card, just in case we get statused, and it can help get Shaman or Unknown out of the active slot if we start with it at the beginning of the game. So it's a very nice card to have around. Definitely want to give it a try, essentially. I'm opting for 3 Forest of Giant Plants, because really after the first turn or so, we don't really need it, and we don't absolutely have to have it in order to be successful. And with the amount we draw, I feel like 3 is quite enough, realistically. So I'm not going for a full set of 4 here. And we are in Expanded, and we do want to run an A-Spec, but apparently right before I found out Expanded was going to be a thing for states, or not states, regionals, I don't know what I'm talking about, for regionals, I traded away this A-Spec, and so I don't have an A-Spec copy of it. So this is Computer Search is going to be our A-Spec. No, this is not a legal substitute for the A-Spec Computer Search, but I'm going to have to sub it for now. But if you're going to play this deck, obviously you have to use the Ace-Spec Computer Search, but it's quite inexpensive right now, so you can easily pick it up, as I intend to do. But just know that your A-Spec should be Computer Search because it discards things, it gets you anything to fix your situation. It's a godsend in this deck, it's just glorious. So yeah, obviously you're going to run that as your A-Spec. Dowsing Machine, I guess, is a nice backup, but it really should be Computer Search. We're running 4 double colorless energies, as it's Vespiquen's best friend. And then we're running 1 each of our basic energies in Fire, Electric, and Water, so that we can use Eevee's Energy Evolution to go get the Eon of our choice from our deck and get that going. And of course, it can be a way for Vespiquen to attack if it needs to. So anyway, that is the deck. I'm looking forward greatly to practicing with this. And until next time, like, comment, subscribe, check me out on Twitter if you haven't already. Link is down below. And I will see you next time.